Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governor should come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption, they lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians are ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed to where we're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Here we go on a Thursday, April 2nd. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. Welcome to this Thursday edition of the Bill Press Show on a great big news day here on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. That's our worldwide video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Check it out. Check it out. And on this Thursday, April 2nd, news on many fronts over in Lausanne, Switzerland. Secretary of State John Kerry has extended the nuclear talks with Iran for at least another day, which means that they are close to a deal. They just seem to be having a hard time getting across the finish line, but it's worth keeping at it to see if they can reach an agreement whereby Iran would agree to suspend its development of a nuclear weapon or race toward a nuclear weapon, at least for a few years. Meanwhile, back here in this country, some big surprises. McDonald's has announced it is going to raise wages for its employees that work at the corporate-controlled outlets, at least, not at their many, many franchises. And Walmart surprised everybody by coming out very, very strongly against Arkansas's religious freedom bill, saying it would be used to discriminate against gays and lesbians, and they urged Governor Asa Hutchinson not to sign it. Surprising developments on the part of both McDonald's and Walmart's. Meanwhile, the biggest news of the day out of California, where Governor Jerry Brown has imposed the first ever mandatory water restrictions on that state to deal with the very, very serious drought that's been going on for several years now and has reached a crisis stage at this point, demanding that Californians restrict their water use by at least 25%. And here in Washington, Senator Bob Menendez indicted on charges of doing political favors in return for campaign contributions. All of that we'll talk about on this Thursday with your calls. Welcome at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board for today's Bill Press Town Hall.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
McDonald's says it is raising wages for employees in its corporate-owned outlets, and Walmart comes out against the religious freedom bill in Arkansas. What's going on? Corporations are changing in the right direction. At least a couple of them. Hello, everybody. What do you say? A big good morning to you. A big welcome to you to the Bill Press Show on this Thursday, April 2nd. Here we go. Great to see you today, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, United States of America, or around the world. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. First on your local progressive talk radio station. We salute you. Good to see you in Radioland today. Thank you for tuning in to your local progressive talk radio station, and be sure to give it your full support and to support the sponsors you hear on that station. We're also coming to you live coast to coast on Free Speech TV, and proud to be there with you on the nation's only 24/7 progressive TV channel. We start the day every day on Free Speech TV, and we are linking up with you worldwide on your electronic device on our video stream, wherever you happen to be on this planet. Can't escape us. From the snows of Norway to the tip of South Africa, we are there on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're there, the whole gang, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy, leading up our team.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
With Alicia Cruz there on the phones, ready to take your calls. And Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping the cameras and the lights on for Free Speech TV and Talker TV, with a big panoply of issues to talk about today. Nuclear talks have been with Iran, have been extended again yet another day in Lausanne, Switzerland, because they're close to a deal, even though they don't have one yet. They want to keep going until they reach a deal, at least a framework for a final deal, because the final deadline is June 30. Here in the United States, Washington rocking yesterday with news of the, not unexpected, the indictment of Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey on corruption charges. Yes, McDonald's has announced they're going to raise wages. So you see all those protests outside McDonald's. Yep, they made a difference, and the protests outside of Walmart have made a difference too. Walmart is coming out very strongly against the Arkansas version of the Indiana religious freedom law, and in California, Governor Jerry Brown imposing, and that's where we'll start this hour, imposing the toughest restrictions ever, and the first mandatory statewide restrictions ever on water use in California. So with all of that ahead of us, we'll get right down to work. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. A new Pew Research study took a look at how Americans use their smartphone.
Aha. Yeah.
Did you know that 64% of American adults
use porn?
Well, they didn't look in the poll.
Oh. Need a bigger screen for that, Bill.
I wouldn't. I think you could get pretty resourceful. 64% of American adults.
Speaking from experience.
So I've heard. 64% of American adults own a smartphone, not just a cell phone, but a smartphone. phone. Also, 15% of Americans say that they just have internet on their phone. They don't have it at home, right? They just use the data from their phone. And also, 1 in 5 Americans have smartphones and exclusively use it for internet. They don't even use the phone function. They just use it to get the internet or texting or things like that, but they don't make phone calls on it. They just use the data. So there you go.
All right. So people are resourceful, sounds
People
like.
are pretty resourceful, yeah. We talked about Comedy Central. They have hired Trevor Noah to replace Jon Stewart as The Daily Show. But rumors circulating yesterday as Bill Simmons, a commentator, said that he heard a rumor about who they originally tried to hire to replace Jon Stewart. Not Bill Clinton. The 3 big names they went after and couldn't land them. Amy Poehler, Louis C.K., and comedian Amy Schumer. All 3 said no.
Whoa.
And so then they made the kind of called the audible to go with a younger and cheaper host like Trevor Noah.
Why wouldn't the others do it? Huh.
I mean,
didn't want to be tied down to a Daily Show or
that's
something?
part of it. I mean, all 3 of those are traveling comedians, are well-established comedians. So to sort of take a risk like that would be a big gamble.
I'm excited about Trevor Noah. It should be interesting.
Look, The Daily Show has created comedy juggernauts, right? I mean, Steve Carell was a nobody. Stephen Colbert was a nobody. John Oliver was a nobody.
Jon Stewart wasn't a big body.
Jon Stewart had a career. I mean, he was somebody.
But
no, he had made movies and stuff. But
it certainly
he's a totally different level.
Right. Yeah.
And it's official. The new largest
By the way, I just have to say a quick note on Trevor Noah. I know there's all this slap about some of his politically incorrect tweets, right? He's a stand-up comic, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
You know, starting with Milton Berle, or even before him, what comedians do is they insult everybody in the room, right?
Yeah, look.
Come on.
This whole thing, he made some insensitive comments. Some of the jokes aren't in very good taste. So most of the ones in question aren't that funny. But come on, guys.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's what stand-up comics do.
Exactly.
You go to these. You go to the comedy club to be insulted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. A new list of the top craft breweries in America is out, and CNBC reports that it's no longer Sam Adams. Boston Beer is the company. Sam Adams is not the largest craft brewer in the country. The largest is Yuengling. Yuengling.
Really?
In Pennsylvania, they call themselves the oldest craft brewery in America. Number 3 on Sam Adams Boston Beer Company fell down to number 2. Sierra Nevada is number 3. New Belgium is number 4. And rounding out the top 5 is Gambrinus.
Not Anchor Steam?
Anchor Steam is not on that list.
Whoa.
It's a yummy beer, Anchor Steam.
Anchor Steam is a tasty beer. We're getting close to Anchor Steam weather, warming up a little bit.
We got to get the Blue Jacket people back in.
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. Yes, 13 minutes after the hour, we start in my state of California today. You know, if California can be summed up in one word, water, right? I mean, that's exactly it. As the late Speaker of the Assembly, Jess Unruh, used to say, the problem with California is the water is where the people ain't. Water's in the north, all the people are in the south, and the history of California is a history of water and a history of water wars. Come on, you've seen the movie Chinatown. That's what it's all about.
Nice.
If not, go back and watch it again. It, I think, came out in the 70s, but it's all about the first battles to bring the water south with Mr. Mulholland at the head of the Southern California powers that raped the Northern California watershed to bring it south to build more homes around Los Angeles and, of course, to feed the hungry farmers in the Central Valley on the way. And California has had an experience, therefore, not just of water wars, but of drought. I mean, I remember in California when we were living there, lived there 30 years in Sacramento, in San Francisco, in Marin County, in Los Angeles, all over the state, that there were times when things got tough and things got tight and people had to conserve water. You couldn't wash your car outside with a bucket of water or with a hose, the way a lot of people did. You were encouraged, maybe not required, to take short showers. I remember distinctly visiting friends in Santa Barbara where you had a bucket in the shower to collect the water until the water got hot, and then use that water to water plants.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, you just didn't let the shower run.
Right.
And then you would...
That's a whole other way of life.
Rinse off, and then turn the water off, and then soap down, and then turn the water back on. I mean, you have very tight restrictions. So we've had a history, sort of a history of dealing with water, but nothing like what it is today, because of this drought that's going on for 4 or 5 years, getting worse every year, and because, of course, of climate change and the warming of the planet and the higher temperatures. It has all produced a state where today California has reached a crisis stage. Demonstrated yesterday when Governor Jerry Brown went up to Lake Tahoe, where traditionally on April 1st they measure the snowpack. 25% of California's water comes from the snowpack, melting water. At this time in the Tahoe area, in the Sierra Nevadas, the snow level is average 5 feet, 60 inches, 5 feet. Jerry Brown was standing on that very spot where they usually measure 5 feet minimum of snow, and there was not a snowflake. It was absolutely bare ground.
Holy cow.
Bare ground. So they went from 60 to 0. As Jerry said yesterday, the governor said, he is a friend of mine. Jerry said yesterday that the Sierra Nevada is the Sierra Nada.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. Right. Actually, overall, the snowpack is down. They've got 6% of the snowpack, normal snowpack for California this year. So the governor yesterday went up there and announced an executive order imposing the first ever, I mentioned these things that we used to have to do and we were encouraged to do, which were voluntary restrictions so that you could cut the water use in your home and your business, your property. But these are mandatory statewide water restrictions to cut use of water by 25%. Here's the governor saying why we've got to do this.
The climate is getting warmer, the weather is getting more extreme and unpredictable, and we have to become more resilient, more efficient, and more innovative, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
So the governor said he's signing this executive order. He did it yesterday.
I'm issuing an executive order mandating substantial water reduction across our state. As Californians, we have to pull together and save water in every way we can.
And the impact is going to be across the board.
It's going to affect golf courses, people's lawns, universities, campuses, all sorts of institutions, the median with vegetation on our roads and highways. It affects all of that.
And the governor says even the big farms are going to have, and the big agribusiness, if you will, in the Central Valley, are going to have to report on how much water they're using.
It's going to require agricultural management plans on many farms, the larger ones, of course, and they've got to report. They have to tell us how much water they're using.
So the kind of things we're talking about, new homes will have to have drip irrigation, have to be provided if they have any landscaping at all. Landscaping will have to be drought-tolerant landscaping. People will no longer be able to do what I saw last week, by the way, in Del Mar, California, there along the beach, where you get, people come into their homes, the sidewalks along there, and it gets inevitably a lot of sand gets dragged up off the beach. And every day I would see people out there with a hose just watering down their sidewalk and pushing the sand back on the. Or you'll see that. You see that in some cities, too, where I see it around here. People out in front of a business with their hose. That's going to be absolutely prohibited, that kind of use of water. As I mentioned, people who still wash their own car and get the garden hose out and just let it run while they're washing the car. That's going to be prohibited. Cutbacks, serious cutbacks on golf courses and cemeteries, and pricing. Local water companies are required to raise prices to, again, discourage heavy use of water. So it's going to be across the board. And it could very well impact all the rest of us across the country, because 80% of California's water is used for agriculture, and California produces about 50% of all the crops that we consume in this country. So if you cut back water use, or they have to pay more for water use on the farms for California, we're going to end up paying the price at the supermarket. I was looking just before the show to see. I was curious about this question because I had this conversation the other evening at dinner with some friends about how much water it takes to grow one almond, for example. Okay, and well, so let's keep that question, but put this in context. And by the way, California's not alone, right? There are going to be other states that are going to have to do this, starting in the west and sweeping east here, overall. But just look at what California provides. I didn't realize this. 99% of all almonds consumed in the United States from California. 99% of all walnuts. 98% of pistachios. 95% of broccoli. 92% of strawberries. 91% of grapes. 90% of tomatoes. And 74% of lettuce all come from California. I mean, I got to say, the other 49 states are not carrying their load here. I mean, they're not doing their job, right? Now,
those numbers are staggering.
Yeah, 91% of all grapes, 90% of all tomatoes. Now, how much does it take to grow these? Here are just some examples. 1 head of broccoli, 5.4 gallons of water.
Whoa.
Basically, broccoli is just like taking a drink of water with a little fiber.
Yeah.
Right?
Sounds like it.
1 walnut, 4.9 gallons of water for 1 freaking walnut, right?
Holy cow.
A head of lettuce, 3.5 gallons of water. 1 tomato. You go to the store and you see that great big pile of tomatoes. Add it up. 1 tomato, 3.5 gallons of water.
Holy cow, man.
Isn't that amazing?
That's stunning.
And the 1 almond, back to that, 1.1 gallon of water.
For 1 almond?
1 almond. 1 tiny little almond. 1.1 gallon of water. A strawberry, 0.4 gallon of water. You don't have to feel so guilty about the strawberries. But that's
still almost half a gallon of water for 1 strawberry.
Yeah, half a gallon of water for 1 strawberry. So there it is. That's the impact. That's what we're talking about. This is climate change. James Inhofe, are you listening, you idiot? Yes. Governor Jerry Brown doing the right thing. What do you think about it, you Californians? Or the rest of us? This impacts us all, every single one of us. We can't ignore this problem either. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it on this Thursday edition of the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Climate change is with us. Big time in California. Mandatory water restrictions. First time ever. Peter?
We're on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. Jessica weighs in, says, I'm going to do my best to help, and I'm just going to stop eating. I'm ahead of the curve on climate change, which ultimately is starvation.
Well, we could be heading in that direction.
Yeah.
Or think of it this way. You could also shower with a friend.
It's very resourceful.
Yes. I remember that was the slogan in California in those days when we used to have to. It's not all bad.
No.
You get to shower. You have to shower with a friend.
Problem is you get so dirty when you shower with a friend.
Well.
Such the optimist, Bill.
If you're doing it right.
All right. Hey, I see your calls. We'll get to your calls when we come back. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about this drought, not just in California.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, we are talking water. We're talking water shortage. We're talking drought. The worst drought, they say, in 500 years in California, triggering Governor Jerry Brown to impose yesterday by executive order the first mandatory statewide restrictions on water, hoping to reduce the use of water by 25% across the board. The Mother Jones has an excellent article, the information I gave you earlier about how much water it takes to grow a head of lettuce or a strawberry or one almond, all comes from Mother Jones. They also point out in the same article how much water consumption is used per capita in various cities in California, just showing the range, right, and the potential for savings. In San Francisco, people use an average of about, it's about 100 gallons a day. That's still a lot of water.
Like per person.
Per person. Per person, per day. Now, that is brushing your teeth, leaving the water running, shaving, leaving the water running, taking a shower, flushing the toilet, again, take a shower with a friend.
Yeah.
And the other slogan at the time, the other thing was, if it's yellow, let it mellow. Yeah. If it's brown, flush it down. I mean, that was the rule, right? So there are ways you can save water. But California today, just to show the range, San Francisco, about 100 gallons per day per person. In Palm Springs, not because they have more people, because of the golf courses and the swimming pools, 750 gallons of water per person per day.
Jesus, what?
750.
Oh, my God.
So there's huge potential for savings, even before you get to the agriculture. And one final point, California, water is such an important. I mentioned you can sum up California. What's it all about? It's about water. When I was working for Governor Jerry Brown as his policy director, the first time around as governor, my office, the office of California, the office that I headed, I should say, the Office of California, the California Office of Planning and Research, actually published a California water atlas. The idea was we were going to do an atlas of California, and then in conversations with the governor and others, we decided, well, the most important aspect of California is water, so let's just do an atlas, the whole atlas of where the water comes from, how the water is used, where the water goes.
That's interesting.
Just about. I just checked. That book is now for sale as a rare book for $275.
Yo!
Wow.
Nice.
Listed as $275. Yeah. I'm waiting till it gets up to about $1,000, and then I'll sell my copy.
Yeah, right. You get a little royalty check for that, right?
Yeah, about that. So we were ahead of our time. I just want you to know. Nettie is on the line from Shiocton, Wisconsin. What do you say, Nettie?
I think that Jerry Brown should be stopping all the water that we're using for fracking. Millions of gallons of water being used for fracking.
That is an excellent point, Nettie, and I'm sad to say that the governor has come out in support of fracking, right?
Yes.
He has, but that is a huge waste of water. What were you saying about how much water is used in each of these wells, do you know, or drill?
There's millions of gallons of water used, and once the water is used, it's no longer potable.
No, it's no longer potable because it's mixed up with all those chemicals, right, that they're shooting into the ground. Yeah.
That's right.
And also, you know what? It's going into the aquifers for sure. That's been proven, which means that water is no longer potable or usable. Yeah. Excellent. You know what, Nettie? I'm going to send that message over to Governor Brown. This sort of contradicts his position on fracking. That's a huge waste of water. Excellent point. Out in Ouray, Colorado. Hello, Mary.
Hi, good morning, Bill. Northern California has those big marijuana farms up there, and a research guy from Davis stated that every plant up there takes up to 6 gallons of water, and there's tens of thousands of plants up there, and they're diverting water from the streams, and then they often drying them up completely, and then they're filled with pesticides because they want to kill the little varmints that they think are going to attack their plants. So I don't know the answer to that. Now, these are illegal farms, okay? But I guess there's acres and acres of them up there. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. You know, I hadn't thought about that. But if you say each plant takes 6 gallons of water...
Estimate of the UC Davis researcher that went up there.
Yeah. Well, that's less than an almond tree, but it's still a lot of water. And I know there are huge. You're right. There are illegal farms still in California, but they're a huge consumer of water.
Sure.
Good point, Mary. Yeah.
Sure.
And that's got to be part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be across the board, right? I mean,
I don't think it's worth singling anything out. I mean,
right. I'm just saying if the farms that grow tomatoes and walnuts and lettuce are going to have to cut back, then sadly the pot farmers are too.
Only if marijuana had more of a nutritional value.
I'd rather give up almonds.
Yeah, but with pot, then you're more hungry for almonds.
The adverse effect.
Yeah.
At least I've been told that.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. But I got to say, good for the governor. Good for Jerry Brown. He's been a long time champion of taking the lead on climate change. California has led in many, many different ways already. When the governor was here a couple of weeks ago, he talked about how tough it is as governor to get some things done when this Congress is doing nothing at all and won't even. There's so many climate deniers; they won't even take up the issue of climate change. So whatever is being done today at the state level. But this is the most, the strongest measures that he's taken so far, and good for him for recognizing the problem and knowing that we have to deal with it. As the governor said, think about this. It's like Dylan said, right? The times, they are a-changing, and we cannot continue to go on and use water the way we have without even thinking about it. I mean, I admit I waste a lot of water every day. I mean, if I'm brushing my teeth, I turn the spigot on and I brush my teeth. I leave the spigot running the whole time. Why? Think of all that water just. Right.
I think a lot of us do that, but I also think
you don't think about it.
No, you don't even think about it. But I think that what you just hit on about. We just don't think of it in those terms. When you look at what's happened in California over the last 5 years, it's unthinkable that we would have gotten to a level this bad.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in our lifetime, we are really seeing some horrible effects of climate change right here.
Right here.
Right here,
right
now, it's hitting us in the face.
And it's only going to get worse.
It's only going to get worse.
Yeah. And you look at the reservoirs or the man-made lakes in California where they used to have little marinas. I mean, they're now just nothing but mud
puddles.
beds.
They're gone.
Yeah, gone. So as Jerry said yesterday, quote, the idea of your nice little green lawn getting watered every day. You have your nice little house. That was a dream, right? You get your little house. You get your little lawn in front, right, with your little flower bed. And then in the evening after dinner, you go out, get the hose, and water your lawn, right? Jerry's saying those days are come and gone. They are over, and they ain't coming back.
That's scary, man.
Huh?
That's scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary. And it's real.
It's real. Maybe the answer is we have to learn to like cactus. To eat cactus.
Yeah. It's nuts. All the photos of the brown and dead lawns. I've eaten cactus before. It's not bad.
Cactus takes a lot of water too, doesn't it? Well, relatively little, I guess, but it is
comparative to other things.
Right.
Yeah. Cactus is good eating, by the way. You can eat. They're good cactus recipes. You don't want to find out, huh?
No. I'll take a shower once a week rather than eat cactus. When we come back, it is a big anniversary. Yes, indeed, The Nation magazine. 150 years of the progressive Bible in this country with some of our leading progressives of all time who have written for The Nation magazine, and it's all put together in a great big 150th anniversary edition. We'll talk to the co-editor of that great publication, Don Guttenplan, when we come back here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished when they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is 14 minutes before the top of the hour here on The Bill Press Show this Thursday, April 2nd. And as a long time, I don't know how many years, long time subscriber of the Nation magazine, would miss it every week. I was so happy yesterday to receive my copy of the 105th anniversary edition of The Nation. Let me tell you, it is a collector's edition for sure, with a great list of, a great collection of articles written by people from the very beginning of The Nation up to today's great writers of The Nation. Boy, if you don't subscribe, you just find somehow you got to find a way to get this book. This is something you want to buy and read every single page of it. D.D. Guttenplan is a London correspondent for The Nation and co-editor of this 150th anniversary edition, who joins us on our newsline this morning. Hey, Don, congratulations. Good to have you with us.
Thanks very much. Good morning, Bill. I'm glad you've got the issue on time. That's a relief.
No, I am too. Yeah, and it's the fattest Nation you'll ever see, right? I don't know how many. This one must be about 150 pages. Well, no,
let's
actually,
put it this way: it's probably the only issue of The Nation in its history that could be mistaken for Vogue or Vanity Fair.
Yeah, right. Or the phone book, right? Yeah. 200.
No, it's thinner than the phone book. It's very. I have it balanced on my lap at the moment. It's not particularly heavy, but
yeah,
it's a beautiful object.
It really,
I just want to point out at the very start of our conversation that for your readers who don't yet subscribe to The Nation, we've done something unusual with this issue, which is we've made it available. The whole issue is available free for downloading online.
Oh, whoa. Wow.
So if you hear anything in this discussion that you're interested in, you can just go to www.thenation.com and take a look. Now, we do that. We don't usually do that. Most of The Nation's behind a paywall most weeks. But I guess part of our feeling is that this issue is such a beautiful object that once you see it on the page on your screen, you'll want to have it in your home. But, in any case, the content is free to download, so go take a look, no obligation, just read what you like.
That is a great service because I think this is really, again, this is a collection of the best progressive thought of this country for the last 150 years. Peter, let's put up a link on our website for sure to thenation.com for this. I'm curious, as co-editor, you must have had to wade through so much great material, and I look here, and you've got, pieces by Jean-Paul Sartre, Carrie McWilliams, Martin Luther King Jr., Christopher Hitchens, Gore Vidal, up to Michael Moore, Ralph Nader, David Korn, and Michael Tomasky, the great progressive writers of today. How did you what was the selection process like? How tough was it?
Well, it took about a year and a half, and I suppose, my part in this initially is I am the Nation's London correspondent, half of our London bureau, but I'm also a historian. And in fact, in a month, I've got a history of The Nation coming out. So I had to spend a lot of time reading through the back issues and our back pages to prepare that. And as I was doing that, I was kind of making notes as to which were the most interesting pieces that I was coming across. But, it's one of the amazing things is that in the first issue of The Nation, July 5th, 1865, there's an article by Henry James Sr. and Henry James Jr. And one of the things that I discovered, one of the, to me, most interesting things that I learned in researching this issue and helping Katrina Vanden Heuvel, our editor and publisher, to put it together, is that it was The Nation that made it possible for Henry James Jr. to become a novelist. His father was a philosopher. The family had some money, but it had basically been spent by the time he and his brothers were born. And so he was being pressed to go into law or some other form of career, And he discovered that by steadily freelancing for the nation, he could just about support himself, particularly if he was living in Europe, where in those days it was cheaper to live.
How about that? Yeah. Well, and if you want to know the story of Henry James, read Colm Toibin's great novel, The Master, by the way.
That's right.
So it all ties together here, right? Tell us...
Well, and also some of the names you mentioned, I mean, for example, Martin Luther King Jr. Now, what was interesting is that the nation, of course, was founded in 1865 by abolitionists who in those days were radical Republicans. And in fact, one of the surprising things about the nation is that it was essentially the house organ of the Republican Party for the first 50 years or so of our existence. It didn't really break free of the Republican Party until the First World War. And it endorsed Woodrow Wilson in 1912 and then again in 1916. And the second great figure in the nation's history, Oswald Garrison Villard, who was the grandson of, he was the son of Henry Villard, and he was named for William Lloyd Garrison, one of the great abolitionists. He moved the nation steadily but slowly to the left and made it the magazine that in many ways it still is today. And one of the things is that...
And Carrie McWilliams was another big force in that, too, wasn't he? Carrie McWilliams, a lot later.
Carrie McWilliams was a huge force in that. Carrie McWilliams came from California. He's, as I say in my history, he's the first editor of the nation to come from west of the Bronx. And he, after the nation was sort of very influential and very much in a way an inside magazine in the 1930s and 1940s, very well connected to the New Deal and FDR's White House. Frida Kirchway, the editor then, was often in and out of the White House, was very friendly with Mr. and Mrs. Roosevelt, President and Mrs. Roosevelt. But Carrie McWilliams essentially allowed the magazine to survive the 1950s without, for example, the New Republic did, and as a lot of other liberal publications did, they all sort of turned vigorously and vociferously anti-communist, and the nation didn't. The nation essentially stood up to McCarthy and McCarthyism, or as we're learning to call it now, thanks to knowing more about that history, Hooverism, because J. Edgar Hoover was really a prime mover behind America's second Red Scare, and the nation was really on the front lines of resisting that. But it was very tough to resist that. Advertising dried up, circulation. It became pretty much true that if you subscribed to the nation, you made somebody's list.
Wow.
And if you subscribed to the nation in places outside of, say, New York City, Los Angeles, or San Francisco, you were probably going to get visited by the FBI. So it took a special kind of person to keep the faith with the nation through the 1950s, and it took Carrie McWilliams, an editor of great courage, to guide the nation through those years, keeping its integrity intact, but also keeping it afloat.
Well, Don, I want you to know my goal is to read every single page of this, no matter how long it takes me. So I'm determined to do that. I wish we had more time. We are out of time, but I got to congratulate you again and thank you for a great job. And we will direct our viewers and listeners to thenation.com to get to download it and read it on their own. But better yet, to subscribe to The Nation magazine. Thanks, Don. Congratulations.
Thanks very much for having me.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases. rainwater-fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
Here we go. Winding up this hour with no time left. About a big hour coming up with John Allen. Was with Bloomberg News. We understand has a great new job. He'll tell us all about it. And then we'll talk aviation safety with Rusty Amer, who's a aviation expert with Aero consulting experts. All of that coming up in hour number 2 here. Thursday, April 2nd, The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go on a Thursday, April 2nd. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. Welcome to this Thursday edition of the Bill Press Show on a great big news day here on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV. That's our worldwide video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Check it out. Check it out. And on this Thursday, April 2nd, news on many fronts over in Lausanne, Switzerland. Secretary of State John Kerry has extended the nuclear talks with Iran for at least another day, which means that they are close to a deal. They just seem to be having a hard time getting across the finish line, but it's worth keeping at it to see if they can reach an agreement whereby Iran would agree to suspend its development of a nuclear weapon or race toward a nuclear weapon, at least for a few years. Meanwhile, back here in this country, some big surprises. McDonald's has announced it is going to raise wages for its employees that work at the corporate-controlled outlets, at least, not at their many, many franchises. And Walmart surprised everybody by coming out very, very strongly against Arkansas's religious freedom bill, saying it would be used to discriminate against gays and lesbians, and they urged Governor Asa Hutchinson not to sign it. Surprising developments on the part of both McDonald's and Walmart's. Meanwhile, the biggest news of the day out of California, where Governor Jerry Brown has imposed the first ever mandatory water restrictions on that state to deal with the very, very serious drought that's been going on for several years now and has reached a crisis stage at this point, demanding that Californians restrict their water use by at least 25%. And here in Washington, Senator Bob Menendez indicted on charges of doing political favors in return for campaign contributions. All of that we'll talk about on this Thursday with your calls. Welcome at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you on board for today's Bill Press Town Hall.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
On your TV and online, this is the Bill Press Show.
McDonald's says it's going to raise wages at its corporate outlets. Now, if we can only get the franchises to go along as well. You see those protests outside of McDonald's do work, make a difference. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, April 2nd. So good to see you today. This is the Bill Press Show. Here we are in our nation's capital, in our studio on Capitol Hill. What the hell? The House may be out of session. The Senate may be gone, but we're here on this good... No, it's not. It's Holy Thursday. Not yet Good Friday. God, I wish it were Friday.
Feels like Friday, right?
It does, yeah. Holy Thursday here in Washington, D.C. Right, exactly. And good to have you with us today on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. Also nationwide on Free Speech TV. And we are pleased to see you both on the radio and on television and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, where people all around the world are rushing to their electronic devices at this moment to watch and to see John Allen pontificate on the politics of the day. John Allen, now let's see, formerly Washington bureau chief of Bloomberg, right?
That's right.
Right, and now, as of today, a new job?
Yes, I'm the chief political correspondent for Vox.com.
Vox.com. There you go.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If we had a fanfare, we would play it right now. But
I appreciate that.
I've wanted one for 10 years.
It's a fanfare.
We need a drum roll. Or
I'll just take.
like that.
I'll just take. Holy Thursday, Good Friday. I will take Great Wednesday yesterday and moving to Vox.
Moving to Vox. Yeah, that's right.
It was a religious experience.
Vox started by Ezra Klein.
Right.
What? A couple of years now?
About a year.
Yeah,
just a year.
Yeah.
Right.
What a year, man.
Oh yeah.
No, the president. They're making all kinds of moves.
They've had a good year.
I'm hoping the next year's even better. I want to be able to claim credit for something.
They're hoping the next year's even better, too. That's why they hired you.
Well, we have the same goal.
Right, great. And you join our team here this morning, whom you know well, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
We are.
Alicia Cruz, they're on, ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Boulding, our videographer, as well.
Bill, you have the best crew.
It's true. We do.
And I don't say that just because they control the microphone.
Turn it up a little bit, would you? Turn Bill's down. Let's turn John up some.
And the cameras, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, the cameras are fantastic.
Now, in talking politics, Senator Al Franken, who doesn't do a lot of media, national media. I mean,
very little.
We used to have him on all the time.
As we have learned.
When he was a candidate, but since he's been a senator, he just did, at least until he was reelected, he wouldn't do any at all.
There should be a Saturday Night Live character based on Al Franken who wants all the camera time in the world until he gets elected to public office and then hides.
Right. So he did break his kind of silence and went on David Letterman last night. And Letterman asked him, he talked about Indiana. And the governor out there. With Al Franken had some unusual political advice, I think. So here's Letterman.
What I want to know is, what can I do now to make the governor feel uncomfortable?
As a matter of fact, there's an open seat there. The incumbent senator, current senator there, Dan Coates, says he's not running next year. And look, when people come to me, they say, young people say, how do you become a United States Senator? And I say, well, do about 35, 40 years of comedy and then run for the Senate. And
that gets you.
It's a formula. It's worked.
Well, the talents of a comedian.
It's worked every time. So I think you should run.
I'm on the right.
I would like you to be.
I think David Letterman has other things in mind when he retires.
I think former Congressman Barron Hill is going to be very upset if David Letterman runs for Senate in Indiana.
Yeah, in Indiana. Is that who Hill is Democrat, Republican?
Democrat.
Democrat. Got a good line on that seat?
I don't know about a good line, but I think he's
definitely
getting ready to run. Yeah.
Letterman's from Indiana, and
Yes, I know,
he's very
that's right.
vocal about the RFRA law there in Indiana.
Yeah.
So this is not the Indiana that I grew up in.
All right.
That's what Letterman said.
So John Allen here with us for the first half hour. We're going to talk air safety at the half hour with Rusty Amer from Aero Consulting Experts. And in the next hour, we will talk a little bit about, in fact, you and I want to talk a little bit about Robert Menendez here in this hour as well. But first, Peter gets us started with the big headlines of the day.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Consumer Reports has their new survey out that takes a look at grocery stores in America and who is the best grocery store in the country. Any guesses? Number one?
Whole Foods.
Whole Foods is not even in the top 10, Bill.
Get out.
Safeway.
Safeway's not even in the top 10. Any other guesses?
Oh, come on. It's got to be.
It's not.
I don't know.
Number one is Wegmans.
No way.
Shout out to Wegmans. I'm a big fan of Wegmans.
Yeah.
They are number one on the list. They take a look at service, perishables, prices, cleanliness. Wegmans has the freshest produce of any store in the country, and they also have the best customer service, things like that. Number 4 on the list is Costco, which counts as a grocery store. Publix is number 3, which is pretty much limited to the American South.
Right?
And then number 2 is Trader Joe's, which is in only 30 states. I thought there were more Trader Joe's out there.
$2 Chuck, though. So
$2 Chuck, yeah,
That's what it is.
exactly.
That's why people go to
I once lived for a week on Publix loaf of bread and turkey.
The Publix bakery, it's the best.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Safeway. I mean, there's just so many Safeway stores. Vons is on the list?
Nope, Vons not on the list. There are a lot of regional weird supermarkets on here. Sprouts is one that's number 5, which you might know from California. So
I want to know the 10 grocery stores you should never set foot in.
Right. Yeah, I'm waiting for Consumer Reports to put out that list. Yesterday was April Fool's Day, and CNN has helpfully rounded up some of the more popular April Fool's Day pranks that brands played. We'll tweet out the entire list, but just a couple of them. One of them was Google Maps putting out the Pac-Man game.
Pac-Man, we talked about that.
Pac-Man. In Uber Thailand, they put out a little thing saying that you could get an Uber boat. You could request an Uber boat. And Samsung Galaxy announced that they had a new phone that doubled as a cleaver. The edge was so sharp that you could chop vegetables with it. Of course, it's not the case. We were going to tweet out, again, that link so you can take a look at their roundup of all of them.
I mercifully avoided any April Fool's jokes. Yes.
Uber Thailand sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah. Really bad idea. Oh, yeah. And earlier this week, we said farewell to Misa Okawa. It's 117 years young. Yep. She is the world's the world's oldest person, and she has been replaced by an American. Right here in America, the oldest woman in the world is Gertrude Weaver. She's 116 years old. She lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, and she has one wish. She wants Barack Obama to come to her 117th birthday party on the 4th of July.
Oh.
This year.
He should do it.
Why wouldn't he? Come on, go.
There's other reasons to go to
I know
Arkansas.
you're listening, Mr. President. I never appeal to you for anything, but go to the lady's birthday party.
We'll see,
I bet the Clintons will show up, too.
Yeah, it's in Little Rock. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, Barack. Yeah, get down
find
there.
Some business down there.
What better thing does he have to do? And there's probably a golf course nearby.
Gotta be.
He can make one.
4th of July weekend,
I'll tell you one
Little
thing.
Rock.
There may not be 118th. That's right.
Ouch, Bill.
Yeah, man.
I didn't mean that in a mean way. I'm just saying chances are 14 minutes after.
We'll see you next year, Gertrude. Maybe.
Mr. Allen, how much trouble is Senator Menendez in?
He's in a lot. It's interesting. There's basically an allegation that he took all these gifts from this major donor, and they've been sort of trotted out over time. You see an indictment.
This investigation's been going on a long time.
Yeah, it's not a surprise sort of what he's accused of, and in fact, he's a senator from New Jersey, so I guess to some extent there's not that big of a surprise. I can't remember the last one. It was like,
ouch! Wait a minute, you're giving me a hard time.
Yeah, well, no, I'm just saying. I mean,
Slam New Jersey.
You know, there's a long and proud history of New Jersey senators being charged with corruption and or affiliated offenses, right? Because nothing's actually being charged with corruption.
We remember Harrison Williams and Angelo Ericetti, and you could go down the list. Yes,
and the very super clean Bob Torricelli. Do you remember the torch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
All right.
So, no, I mean, it's, allegations. But this is bad news for Bob Menendez. It's going to be hard being under indictment and being a senator.
And right, as a senator, I mean, he said yesterday he's going to fight this. He's angry. And that's his nature. That's his style. And he will. And he should fight the charges. But it's hard to see him remaining. Well, can he remain chair of Senate Foreign Relations and
Well, I suppose the good news for him on that front is that the Democrats are in the minority and people care less about the top-ranking minority member than the
he's
chairman.
no longer chair.
He was chairman. Exactly. I think that you'd see a lot of calls for him to give up that spot. I think it weakens the hand of, in a lot of these negotiations, he's such a strong advocate for particular positions. For instance, on Iran and sanctions. I think that inevitably weakens that position to have the guy who's out front.
Which, in a perverse way, is good for President Obama.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I don't see a conspiracy theory in this indictment happening. But if it happened a week or two ago, maybe.
Yeah. Now, on the 2016 front, among the 19 names of potential Republican candidates was one governor, Mike Pence of Indiana. Do you think he still has any chance after he hasn't had a good week?
Well, it's possible that his chances of winning the Republican nomination went up. I think his chances of winning the presidency went down. He will. If you're going for just the nomination, then you got a good shot there. I think this hurts him. I think it hurts the likelihood he's going to get in. I think it was unlikely that he was going to run anyway. I expect sometime maybe in May or so. To hear some official announcement from him that he's not running.
But it's not just this riffra, right, as they call it, did not just impact Mike Pence's candidacy. It really spread like a poison in the hole through the Republican ranks, and they were almost all of them were forced to respond one way or the other.
Well, I mean, you had a couple of them jump out immediately, Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush, and say that they supported Mike Pence in this, and then Mike Pence backtracked. Just kind of left them hanging out on the edge of a limb.
They didn't say, we support Mike Pence because he's going to fix this. They just said, we support the original bill.
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Look, we've got a cultural clash here. And I think this is sort of an interesting issue, right? Because somebody is going to lose on something that they see as a matter of their rights, right? So you get the religious groups who think that they should have a right not to have to hire people who don't subscribe to their beliefs or have a different lifestyle or different genetic coding or whatever the deal is. And then on the other side, you've got a whole community that's like, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against us. And somebody's going to lose that. And somebody will, one set is going to be aggrieved one way or the other.
Well, it's also a clash, it seems to me, for the direction of the Republican Party. I mean, there are people who say, Republicans, we've got to talk about the economic issues and the jobs and wages and get off these cultural wars. But there's still a big block of the Republican Party that wants to fight the cultural wars. Rick Santorum, Mike Huckabee, and the people who are putting these RFRA laws in state after state after state.
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
I mean, which way does the party go?
Yeah, I mean, that set is extremely influential within the Republican Party, and it waxes a little bit, wanes a little bit, but they're always there. And
I thought it was waning, but now it's waxing.
It's waxing.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it's a problem for the Republican Party that they've yet to resolve, and if you feel like something is really essential to your culture or your lifestyle, you'll fight for it. And so I think that's what we're seeing now. I think the leadership in Washington would prefer to avoid culture wars, but a lot of the ground troops would prefer to have them.
I mean, this is my friend Pat Buchanan, whom I did Crossfire with, and and Buchanan and Press on MSNBC. This is the Buchanan War, right? These are the issues that Pat ran on, and here we are. We're back. Pat would be very comfortable out there today with this gang.
I mean, look, you had Ted Cruz announce his presidential run at Liberty University.
At Liberty University.
I mean, that's there's no small coding in that. You don't need a dog. You don't need to be able to hear a dog whistle.
I was surprised that Jeb Bush, in responding and backing Mike Pence and backing the law into original form, didn't say something like, "I understand what he's trying to do, but this ought to be fixed." To me, it was an opportunity for Jeb Bush to show he's different than that crowd.
If anybody was going to.
Well, his problem is he's too different from that crowd.
On too many issues.
Right.
Huh?
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look
Good
at
point.
it, his father, I think, once famously criticized. I'm not going to repeat the awful thing that his father once said about the cultural conservatives in the Republican primary, but it dealt with their genetic coding. He's got a huge problem, which is there are big core issues for base Republicans that he's different than them on. So I think for him, it looked like an opportunity.
Yeah.
To say, hey, I'm
one of you. Right. Yeah. Okay. John Allen here from Vox News. VoxNews.com. Is that
Vox.com.
Vox.com.
With a V.
V-O-X.
Yeah.
Vox.com.
Like voice.
There you go.
It's Latin for voice, of course. Not Fox. Vox.com. And we'll be right back. You want to jump in? 866-55-PRESS. Comments welcome.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job, and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand, and they don't get it, and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, do we have the kind of protections we need against a, what shall we say, troubled pilot that Germany didn't have? We'll find out in the next half hour from Rusty Amer. Right now we're talking politics 2016 and other issues with John Allen, who is the new political director for Vox.com. John, so I want to ask you about you, also author of the book HRC, great book, you and Amy Parnes, out in paperback now.
Amy's a new mom. Congratulations.
And Amy's a new mom, right? When you look at the Democratic side, just a minute or so left, is it going to be just Hillary, and nobody else dare run against her?
Sure looks that way. I mean, look, Governor O'Malley, I think, is running against her, but I think he's more running in case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it looks that way. And the Democrats could nominate somebody who's got a lot of problems. That's something that you would think that would attract more people to the race.
And so there are other potentials, like Elizabeth Warren, of course.
Give up the dream, Bill.
I know, man.
Bernie Sanders. I don't know, but Bernie's still out there moving around. He was in Chicago yesterday.
Sure, he may run. But he's not going to win a nomination against Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's no coalition for Bernie Sanders in the Democratic Party against her.
But a whole group of Democrats, leading Democrats this week, led by Larry Cohen, president of the Communication Workers, came out and said, we need Democrats to run. We can't just think that Hillary's going to make it on her own.
Democratic Party looks like the Republican Party this time around.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, wow. And let's face it, for people like you and me, a contested primary would be a lot more interesting, right?
Well, it's more fun, but I don't know if we should be the ones determining who runs and who doesn't.
I want to be in charge. All right. Well, congratulations on the new job. Thanks for coming in. Our neighbor on the Capitol Hill and good friend Vox, VOX, Vox.com. Follow John Allen. He's going to be making news this year. Thanks, John.
At least breaking it. Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour on a Thursday, April 2nd. Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C. And brought to you today by the United Steelworkers and their international president, Leo Gerard. The good men and women of the Steelworkers Union under President Leo Gerard. North America's largest industrial union, representing 1.2 million, over 1.2 million active and retired members. Their website is usw.org. Check it out. A lot of Americans nervous about flying and protection in the airways after the co-pilot of the German Wings plane flew that plane with 150 people on board into the Alps after locking the pilot out of the cockpit. Questions raised about airline safety. For answers, we turn to the president of Aero Consulting Experts. You've seen him many times recently talking about this incident on national television. Captain Ross Rusty Amer. Hello, Captain. Good to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
We're doing great. Thank you. So after September 11, everybody said we got to do something to lock these cockpit doors so nobody else can get in. I guess it protected us against everybody but the pilot, right?
Sadly, that's true. As I've said in many of my interviews, the fortress door, as we affectionately call it, worked perfectly the way it was designed. Unfortunately, this time it kept the good guy out.
Is there any talk within the industry now of changing that lock and enabling someone who should be able to get into the cockpit?
You know, we do have amazing technology, and we can basically do anything we want to. I don't know if we really want to take away some of the security of this door. But I suspect that they could do perhaps better iris technology or fingerprint technology could have possibly added to this door. But it's going to obviously cost a lot of money, and which airlines are very reluctant in spending.
And what about the issue of, here was a young man who had suffered severe depression, even had suicidal tendencies, and apparently the airline was aware of that, even though they denied it initially. Should he have been even at the controls?
No, absolutely not. That's the irony of it, Bill. You probably hear a lot about low-cost carriers. Those words usually make me shiver. When you talk about low cost, the fixed costs of airlines are basically the same for everybody. They pay for the aircraft, they pay for the fuel. So what's left is pressure on employee salaries, training, which is the most important part.
Yeah.
Background checks, psychological testing, stuff like that they, unfortunately, these low-cost carriers have to curtail in order to sell you that cheap ticket. First of all, my question is, how cheap do you really want that ticket?
Right.
And this is one of the, when I started flying, we all had to go through rigorous psychological testing. United Airlines had a battery of tests that they gave us. That would have weeded out most people. And then constantly, when every 6 months we go to get our medical certificate that is required for flying, obviously the AME, the doctor, Aero medical doctor, can detect something perhaps, although these tests, follow-up tests, are not designed for psychological testing. But, we're vetted after many years. Our peers could find out if there's something wrong with us. This kid was, I hate to say the word, he was right off the street, unvetted.
Yikes. That's you hit on one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and it gets right to the heart of how this is going to impact American domestic flights compared to international flights, because there are different standards, right?
That is correct. The U.S. carriers are under FAA, and most of the world looks up to the FAA. So we do things slightly different than the rest of the world, and there's less chance of this type of horrible accident happening on a U.S. carrier. Number one, most of our flight crews are much more experienced and vetted, and that usually, hopefully, helps. And again, don't forget, at any moment, there are 700,000 flights flying around the world. Out of those, basically billions of flight hours a year, this accident is a single one. The odds are extremely, extremely low to have something like that happen.
It was so unusual to hear of a commercial airline flight, a passenger plane crashing, and when I first heard about it, right? And then you hear the circumstances and you realize, well, this really is an aberration. I mean, I guess what you're saying is airline travel today is safer than it's ever been. Seems
Absolutely.
That way to me as a frequent flyer.
Absolutely. By factors of 1,000 times. If you really wanted to maintain your car, train yourself as a driver to the airline standards, perhaps you could hardly ever drive your car. You're either spending time in training or maintaining your car. So, yes, the commercial aviation is by far the safest method of traveling. The airline cruise is very, very dedicated and the most watched profession in the world.
Captain Rusty Amer is our guest. He's president of Aero Consulting Experts, and you can find out more about their good work in this issue at their website, Aero, A-E-R-O, aeroconsultingexperts.com. Peter, you had another question?
Yeah, I want to ask if you see any trend in the fact that there have been more commercial airline crashes or disappearances or whatever over the last couple of years. Do you think that there's any reasoning behind that, or is it just one of those things?
I would say yes or no. There's really not more than normal if you figure the growth. In fact, I would call it an explosive growth of commercial aviation in third world countries, in emerging economies like China, Southeast Asia. The fact that, for example, China is so extremely vast, and they don't have the highway structure that we do. In order to build something like we have in the United States, it's almost impossible for even China. So the easiest way to do is to build some airports. Those are much cheaper and easier to do than build a superhighway system. They build airports, they start airlines.
A lot of regional flights then. Huh?
Yes,
yeah.
Regional flights. So with the, like I mentioned earlier, explosive growth in those regions, you get more and more flights. But accidents per flight hours are actually dropping drastically because of technology. However, there comes the question of experience of flight crews.
Yep.
Again, a lot of these low-cost carriers, they have to grab anybody to put on those airplanes to man them. And this particular case, again, it was the best example. A kid with less than 200 hours gets selected, and this is basically the result.
So, maybe I'm uncomfortable asking this question because I fly a lot and I often end up on regional airlines. But can one sort of assume that the people who are flying the shorter flights, the smaller flights, regional airlines, have less experience and less qualifications than the people flying the longer routes like coast to coast or internationally?
Oh, absolutely. The regional.
Don't tell me that.
Well, although, again, in the U.S., we do have different laws now. For example, they recently, as a result of a kind of a visible crash in Buffalo a few years back.
Yes.
They mandated that every first officer or new pilot must have at least 1,500 hours and an ATP license, Air Transport Pilot License. So, again, that brand new first officer at a regional jet in U.S. is far more experienced than some of the captains of these low-cost carriers around the world.
Right.
I will not put my family on a flight that overseas, like Ryanair, which is based in Ireland, but it flies all over Europe, is perhaps one of the most dangerous airlines as far as I'm concerned, because their new first officers basically buy that seat with hardly any experience. So we do have airlines like that in some parts of the world, which I would never step in one of those airplanes.
Wow. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good to know. It's still a little scary, too. Well, I feel a lot better, a lot safer about our domestic airlines thanks to our conversation this morning, Captain. It's so good of you. You've been so busy lately. So good of you to take time for us this morning. We appreciate it very much. And thanks for all your good work.
It's a pleasure, Bill. I love your show.
Thank you so much. Okay, great. I hope we get to talk again, Captain Rusty Amer with Aero Consulting Experts. And you can find out again, follow their good work at aeroconsultingexperts.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour, Rebecca Sinderbrand from the Washington Post political news editor joins us at the top of the next hour. And then Melanie Sloan from Triumph Strategy to take a look at perhaps serious legal troubles. Well, no doubt serious legal troubles for Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey. The big news today, lead story on Huffington Post and all across the front of the New York Times, California, and actions taken by Governor Jerry Brown yesterday, who should be running for president this year, by the way. I've changed my mind about that.
All right.
Maybe he ought to hold back, but now, Jerry, go, Jerry, go. Anyhow, Governor Jerry Brown yesterday signing an executive order mandating for the first time ever in the history of California statewide mandatory restrictions on the use of water. And of course, water is what California is all about. The history of California is a history of water because God so made that state that he put all the water in the north and the people in the south. And somewhere you got to connect the two. And they did that. Remember the movie? Chinatown, right? Taking the northern water to the south, with a lot of it going to the big farms in between before it even gets to Southern California. Now California, for the last 3 or 4 years, in a serious drought. That drought is now the worst in 500 years, has reached a critical stage. And Governor Jerry Brown yesterday saying, we just can't continue to do business the same way.
The climate is getting warmer, the weather is getting more extreme and unpredictable, and we have to become more resilient, more efficient, and more innovative, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
And the governor made that statement and signed that executive order in a very dramatic location. He went up to Lake Tahoe, to the Sierra Nevadas, where they generally, on April 1, measure the snowpack. Standing alongside of him was a man who is the head of the snowpack department, if you will, in California. He had this long pole that they normally use to measure the snowpack because the average amount of snow at that time, depth, right, or coverage, is 5 feet, 60 inches, 5 feet. This year, the governor and this gentleman were standing on a bare patch of ground, 0. It went from 5 feet to no coverage at all, or as the governor said, the Sierra Nevada is now the Sierra Nada. Nothing, no snow at all. As the governor said, he signed this executive order to do something about that.
I'm issuing an executive order mandating substantial water reduction across our state. As Californians, we have to pull together and save water in every way we can.
And the governor talked about the impact across the board.
It's going to affect golf courses, people's lawns, universities, campuses, all sorts of institutions, the median with vegetation on our roads and highways. It affects all of that.
You know what? You know what I just thought of, which is maybe a goofy idea in the middle of all this, is baseball season is right around the corner. It's like next week.
You're right. Right.
Dodger Stadium or wherever, any of the other the Angels or California teams with that green grass of the outfield.
City parks, a lot of city parks have big sprinkler systems and everything. So among other measures, this executive order requires drought-tolerant landscaping, requires that new homes have drip irrigation, requires local water agencies to raise their prices to discourage water consumption. And, I think it's going to be back to the days that I remember in California in far, far less serious droughts where, the order of the day was when it comes to home water use, particularly and for toilets, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. I save a lot of water that way in terms of per capita use. And the best news of all was everybody was encouraged to shower with a friend. Short showers, but make them less longer and more fun by showering with a friend. So there you go. It's not all bad news.
Save water while getting a little dirty while getting clean.
There you go. We'll come back and tell you what's on the president's agenda today. He is, like Willie Nelson, on the road again.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, I know you love the first 2 hours. You can't wait for hour number 3. Well, you're going to have to wait on Free Speech TV until 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central. But you can catch the third hour right away, immediately live on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Jump over there for Rebecca Sinderbrand, political editor for the Washington Post, who will be here in studio with us, taking a look at the funny antics of Republican presidential candidates for 2016. And then we'll be joined by Melanie Sloan from Triumph Strategies, taking a look at how much trouble is Bob Menendez really in. Hour number 3 coming up here on this Thursday edition of the Bill Press Show.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Coming up in the next hour, Rebecca Sinderbrand leads off the next hour, political news editor for the Washington Post. And then we'll be joined by Melanie Sloan from Triumph Strategy, taking a look at the charges faced by New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez. The president today on the road for the next 2 days. He starts off, gets a daily briefing today at the White House, and then out to Andrews Air Force Base to fly down to Louisville, Kentucky, where he will be visiting a high-tech firm down there called Indatus, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, delivering remarks there. Then he leaves Kentucky on his way to Salt Lake City, where he will be spending the night in Salt Lake City and then giving a talk there tomorrow before heading back. I think it's a roundtable on the economy in Salt Lake City before heading back to the United States. Utah will be the 49th state he has visited as President of the United States. No press briefing today because the president's on the road. We'll be right back with hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's 2, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions. So from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
how it will manifest itself. It will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight. It's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please. 2 anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website, at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The first ever mandatory statewide water restrictions in California. Climate change is here. Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Thursday, April 2nd. So good to see you today, and it's just good to be back together with you, as we are every morning for 3 hours, bringing you up to date on the news of the day, and most importantly, hearing from you as to what it all means to you. Wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, we are there with you on your local progressive talk radio station, on the at least 2 radio apps, either blanking on the...
You got the iHeartRadio
iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
iHeartRadio is the one I was trying to remember. Yeah, right. To download that. The other one
is the TuneIn app. Listen to us on the Progressive Voices channel.
Progressive Voices channel on the TuneIn app. And also, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours, we are there with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. In studio with us from the Washington Post political news editor, Rebecca Sinderbrand, because there's a lot of, while the Senate and the House are maybe out of town, there's still a lot of political news going on. And a brand new Washington Post poll this morning, which you will tell us all about shortly.
Hot off the presses.
Hot off the press, right?
Released
exactly.
just an hour ago.
Is that right?
That's right.
Oh, good. All right, we're the first ones to get a chance to broadcast
Nice.
about that. You here with our team, of course, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
All right. Alicia Cruz, she's there just to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, of course, on the job with Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. The a new Peter, you used to talk about new restaurants and new food offerings. Of
course.
There's a new one at Disneyland
Is that
you
right?
haven't reported.
Disney
on yet.
World.
Disney World. I'm sorry. Right.
Where I used to work.
But that's right. Dressed up dressed up as Goofy.
Appropriately.
I spent some time dressed up as Goofy. I was also a Jungle Cruise skipper.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, it was pretty hardcore. It was pretty hardcore.
Exactly, yeah. Well,
You never accidentally took off your head in front of a child, did you?
Oh, this thing's killing me. Give me a smoke. No.
Okay, good.
Well, now when you hear about this new restaurant, you may want to go back. You haven't reported on it, but Conan O'Brien did last night.
For the first time, a vegan, gluten-free bakery has opened at Disney World. Oh my. Vegan, gluten-free, yeah. Yeah, the place is called It's a Sad World.
Not only gluten-free, but vegan, gluten-free. Oh, no. Give it up. All right. Again, Rebecca Sinderbrand here. Melanie Sloan from Triumph Strategies joins us at the half hour. We'll get right to it. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, Steve, just a couple of other stories making news. Last night in NBA action, the Dallas Mavericks took on the Oklahoma City Thunder. It was a high-scoring affair, 135-131, with the Mavericks winning that. But in that game, congratulations to Dirk Nowitzki. He became the 7th player in NBA history to score 28,000 career points. So he racked up some points in that game, put him over the edge, so congratulations to him.
Wow. Yeah, what a career.
This is a scary story if you ever use Uber. A woman in Denver took UberX from her house to the Denver airport, where she then got on a plane and left. The driver for UberX went right back to her house and robbed the place because he knew that she wasn't going to be home.
Oh, no, boy.
Yeah. So no statement yet from Uber. They're going to wait and see how this plays out. He's not driving for UberX anymore, but
I would hope not.
Stay tuned.
Scary.
Scary, right? Yeah. And today is the day that Airbnb begins operating in Cuba. If you want to use Airbnb, the app that lets you find extra rooms or houses to rent out.
Airbnb's a great
It's a great service. You can look for places all over the world, but you couldn't do it in Cuba until today. Today is the day. So if you look for lodging in Cuba, according to the Daily Beast, you will find more than 1,000 properties there now. 40% of those are in Havana.
But you know what that really shows? The entrepreneur spirit for the people of Cuba. They see an opening here. And right?
Yeah.
That's right.
There it is.
So,
and what a great way to actually see the real cultural experience.
Totally. Yeah. You know what? We're going to Cuba next month.
Get your Airbnb.
Check out Airbnb today. Hey, how about it? Okay. All right. Now, what's up with this latest poll here? I see the headline in the Washington Post. Bush now tops GOP field. Clinton runs ahead of all Republicans. So let's start with the GOP field. It's a pretty big field.
It's a pretty big field, and Bush may be leading it, but not by much. He's got 20%. In number 2, with a bullet, Ted Cruz at 13. Followed by Scott Walker at 12. So, not a big gap there. Not a lot of breathing space for Jeb Bush.
And the others are all down in single digits, obviously, huh?
Yeah, the fact that there's a couple of candidates who are hovering just a little bit over 6% between the 6 to 10% mark, and then a couple more down at 1 to 2% in asterisk territory. So.
And we only have one official candidate.
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz,
who just last night his campaign announced he'd hit the $4 million mark since announcing last week. So, he's doing okay. He's certainly not beating Jeb Bush. Nobody's beating Jeb Bush in the money chase, that's
Part
for sure.
of the rap on him, and I guess some of the others, is none of them have a campaign organization, do they, yet?
Not one as such. No, they don't. I mean, nobody does. They're working on it. I mean, every single day you're hearing about more and more hires. You're hearing there are very few people who are hiring as much as Clinton, who doesn't have technically any sort of a campaign, isn't any sort of a candidate. But, every day we're hearing about more people ready for Hillary. Finally, the Ready for Hillary people, the Hillary Clinton campaign is ready for Hillary. Bringing a couple of those staffers on board, finally.
And Ted Cruz soon to be joined in the rank of official candidates?
By Rand Paul. So next week, enjoy the holiday, and then next week, Tuesday, we're going to see him in Kentucky, and then launching on a big tour, including, and try to imagine his father doing this, an event at an aircraft carrier in South Carolina.
Really?
Really.
Huh. So, of course, he'll go to Iowa, to New Hampshire, and
Nevada
South Carolina.
and South Carolina. That's right.
Right.
Hitting all 4 stops.
And the week after that?
The week after that, get ready for Marco Rubio and his kickoff event in Miami.
What are with Jeb Bush? Is it issues or just name recognition at this point?
It's hard to, the interesting thing is, even though he gets, barely 20% support, particularly soft support among people who identify themselves as strong conservatives, he's not doing very well with them. But 1 in 3 Republicans polled say they think he'll probably be the nominee. I guess they're basing it on, strength of money, and he seems like the most electable candidate. And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of feeling of, well, he'll probably wind up being the nominee.
Yeah. His name is Bush, right?
That's right? He's
a former governor. He's not from Washington.
That's right.
He's raised a ton of money, and he's not as
he's
extreme,
got the
certainly.
most crossover appeal. Scott Walker, though, the interesting thing is Scott Walker's support is kind of divided pretty evenly among people who identify themselves really strongly as conservatives and people who are maybe a little bit more moderate. He's Scott Walker, even though, right now, for the moment, Ted Cruz has this bump, he kind of remains Jeb Bush's kind of biggest long-term threat.
Whatever happened to Chris Christie?
Whatever happened to Chris Christie? The incredibly disappearing candidate. I mean, he's barely hanging on here. He's way down in the single digits. There's not a lot of breathing room left for him. He's not got a lot of space to maneuver. He said this week he's going to be doing these town halls in New Jersey through June. So, for whatever that's worth, he does these weekly town halls where he meets with voters next week in Old Bridge. New Jersey.
Yeah.
So we'll see. He doesn't have a lot of...
For the national political scene, that's not giving you a lot of clout.
Yeah,
right?
not so much. But, he's out there. He's going back to some early states. He's getting back on the road a bit. He's going to be heading back to Iowa. And so we'll hear a little bit from him, but he doesn't have a lot of space left. He's got to make his move soon.
Right. And on the Democratic side, Hillary outguns all the potential rivals at this point?
Not only does she outgun potential rivals on the Democratic side.
Yes.
On the Republican side, the general election matchups, now for what that's worth this far out, who can say it? It's just a snapshot of how people feel at this moment. she's the only 2016er who's not underwater. That means she's the only one where there aren't more people who dislike her than like her. She has a net positive of only about 3 points, but Jeb Bush is underwater by 20 points.
Meaning more say
they
disapprove
dislike
than approve, huh?
approve, right? And so she beats all the Republicans
By 20 points.
That's right. 53 disapprove.
Jeez.
Yeah.
31% or so approve. And the interesting thing is, you know, she beats all of the Republican challengers by double digits, even Jeb Bush. But of course,
Yeah.
you know, there's still warning signs in there. You kind of dig a little bit into the numbers. You look there, and then people aren't necessarily sure she's being honest and trustworthy with them. That there's a little bit of softness there. They're not necessarily as sure that the numbers are starting to come down a little bit as to whether she relates to people like them. Now, you know, part of this is she's had a big splashy book tour. You know, that's a little unrelatable for some people.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see what happens. This is something to be expected since she left office. You know, when you are holding an office like Secretary of State and you look nonpartisan and everyone likes you, most of the slide we've seen actually comes from loss of support among Republicans. So the question is, you know, Hillary Clinton had support among Republicans?
Yeah.
Yes, she did. But now she looks like a candidate again.
Yeah.
So these guys don't like her as much.
And the biggest cautionary tale with this that any horse race at this time is really meaningless because the campaign hasn't started. The
Right.
issues have been
It's just a
developed.
snapshot of where
yeah.
we are right at this moment, how people feel right at this moment. The election is not going to be held for more than 600 days. We have a little counter over at the Post of how many days left until the election day 2016. So
Good. To turn the page every day. And you were mentioning before we went on the air that next week in Iowa, particularly on the evangelicals, right?
That's right. Religious conservatives, social conservatives, you know, wait for next week. Next Thursday, the homeschoolers in Iowa are having their annual Capitol Day where they descend on the Capitol and then to lobby legislators. And then they're going to get together at the hotel near the airport, and they're going to have a panel with the presidential candidates. Now, not all of the presidential candidates. Jeb Bush, not there. Rand Paul, not there. But who is going to be there are the candidates who are really depending on evangelical support to kind of make their, I mean, social conservative support. That's basically what kept Rick Santorum in the race for so long. There's no way without that, and that powered him to wins. And so you have a number of these candidates. They're going to be vying, including Ted Cruz, are going to be vying for their support. There's also going to be the family leader, the conservative group in Iowa, is going to be holding a conference that day as well. So keep an eye on what happens with the social conservatives.
So this is going to be the Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum.
That's right. Bobby Jindal.
Ted Cruz. Bobby Jindal in that crowd too?
Very much so. Bobby Jindal is really doubling down and looking for social conservative support.
Whoa. So someone I saw a couple of weeks ago, I thought broke down the Republican primary quite cleverly in that there are really maybe 3 or 4 primaries, not just one primary.
That's right.
You know, there's the establishment primary, there's the Tea Party primary, there's the Libertarian primary, I guess, and there's the evangelical primary.
That's right.
And so this next Thursday will be the evangelical primary.
And especially for these guys who are kind of, you know, either at the lower end of the top tier or who are just kind of struggling to break in. One of them has to solidify the support. And it's a very big question mark at this point. There isn't really anyone who can claim, hey, I've got this group.
But Huckabee may, in the sense that he won the straw poll the last time he ran for president, right?
Yeah, for what that's worth. Yeah, you know, that in 250 will...
It won't get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Right.
I don't know what.
It'll get you on the subway, but, you know, for what that's worth.
Yeah. Oh, boy, that's going to be fun to watch. And then the straw poll in Iowa.
In August. So, yeah, you know, not that far away now. We're getting closer. This is April. So we're starting to get into the heart of things. You know,
that is true, because for so long we was like, oh, it's so far away. It's so far away. It's getting there.
I'm really thinking of going to the straw poll this year again. I've been there before a couple of times. It's a zoo, but this year is going to be particularly.
Well, it's going to be a new location, the Boone straw poll. You know, we'll see what that looks like.
There it is. Oh, the politics of the moment. Such fun to follow, especially to be able to follow with Rebecca Sinderbrand from the Washington Post, political news editor. So you heard about this latest poll just broke an hour ago with the Washington Post, 866-55-PRESS. If you got a thought or a comment about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans. Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now. Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Senator Robert Menendez says he will fight the charges against him. We'll talk about that with Melanie Sloan from Triumph Strategies in the next half hour. Right now, we're taking a look at the politics of the day. with no better person to do it with than Rebecca Sinderbrand, political news editor for the Washington Post. And Rebecca, looking at the Republican primary again, things are moving along, and a lot of people, including Jeb Bush, Rick Santorum even, were saying, Republican Party, we got to focus on blue-collar issues, income inequality, wages, jobs. And then suddenly Indiana passes this religious freedom law, and the Republican Party is right back in the cultural
and
wars.
Here come the social issues.
Yeah, they're right back in the cultural wars again. And a problem not just for Mike Pence, but then everybody else sort of was called upon to weigh in on this.
Well, I mean, and a problem for the candidates, too. They came out so strongly in favor of the law that they actually got ahead of where the states are. So you saw Mike Pence saying, hey, this law needs to be clarified, needs to be modified. You had, the governor of Arkansas saying not so fast there when it comes to the moves that his state's been making.
But meanwhile, Ted Cruz and...
doubling down. Ted Cruz last night saying, a number of things. First of all, basically saying Governor Pence had it right the first time. Mm-hmm. And then blaming Fortune 500 companies for pushing what he called a radical gain.
But Jeb Bush said, and which surprised me, instead of saying, I understand what they're trying to do, but this law goes, maybe this law should be modified a little bit or whatever. They just made a mistake. They went too far. He came flat out and said Pence was right the first time around.
But then he came last night, speaking to donors in California. So speaking behind closed doors.
Surprise, he goes to California and he has to change his stand a little bit.
But let's be honest, he, behind closed doors telling them, look, it would have been better if they'd built a consensus and, I have to be sure we're respectful. He was close to talking points and things that he said before. So that may be closest to his actual point of view. And he's really trying to kind of navigate this very narrow channel. On the one hand, he's got to think about the social conservatives. His social conservative support, very soft in our new poll. On the other hand, the business community, the people who are basically pushing him to a bankroll that none of the other candidates can even come close to matching, they're not too happy with the direction this new law is taking.
Now Ted Cruz and Rick Santorum, this is about 30 seconds here, but both of them have accused the business community of interfering with religious freedom. But when talk about the business community who've expressed opposition here, we're talking Walmart, we're talking NASCAR. We're not talking crazy liberal companies.
The interesting thing is on a number of fronts, on social issues and on economic issues, this Republican field, at least certain members of them, are not afraid to attack the business community head on. We're going to see more of that as the primary progresses.
Wow, right. So they're parting ways with a lot of their traditional corporate support.
Quite a few of them are.
Man, I tell you, suicidal if you ask me. We'll see how it all plays out. Rebecca Sinderbrand, thanks for bringing the poll to us. First outlet.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour, here we go. The Bill Press Show on Thursday, April 2nd, live from Washington, D.C. in our studio on Capitol Hill, and brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers. You put those all together, you get the SMART Union, giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay under President Joseph Nigro, you bet. And you can find out more information about their website at smart-union.org. It didn't come as a surprise yesterday. Investigations have been going on for the last 2 or 3 years, and the Justice Department sort of leaked their intentions a couple of weeks ago. But yesterday, they came down and indicted Senator Robert Menendez on corruption charges. Senator Menendez vowing that he was going to fight this. He was angry, and he said they just got it all wrong.
I'm angry because prosecutors at the Justice Department don't know the difference between friendship and corruption and have chosen to twist my duties as a senator and my friendship into something that is improper.
In fact, he says this is just his political enemies trying to get him.
I'm outraged that prosecutors at the Justice Department were tricked into starting this investigation 3 years ago with false allegations by those who have a political motive to silence me.
That's what it's all about, is it? Well, Melanie Sloan, former head of Crew and now head of Triumph Strategies, joins us in studio to tell us more details about this indictment. Hello, Melanie. Good to see you.
Always nice to be with you.
This is just a political conspiracy by his enemies in New Jersey.
Well, the funny thing about that is it's actually Crew that wrote the letter to the Justice Department back in 2012 that started this investigation.
Oh,
so I didn't consider myself a political enemy of Senator Menendez.
And you're not from New Jersey.
And I'm not from New Jersey.
But by the way, it's just I'm going to get that out of the way in the first. Politico has a headline this morning: "Don't blame Menendez, blame New Jersey." Yeah, and we know New Jersey does have a history. So does this just sort of come with the territory?
Well, you can say it comes with territory in New Jersey. There's New York. There's Illinois. There seem to be plenty of states with these kind of problems.
Maybe it comes to the territory of the U.S. Senate, right?
It could be. And that's a great point you're bringing up. Like when Senator Menendez says, the Justice Department is confusing friendship with his duties as a senator, I'd like to know where in the Senate manual it says your duty is to help use your position to influence the State Department to give visas to your friends, 18-year-old girlfriends, so they can come to the country for booty calls.
For booty calls?
Booty calls, yeah. That might be the first time we've said booty calls on the show. Nice job. You got it. Awesome.
You heard it here on the
Good job,
Press
Melanie.
Show. Right.
But I didn't go too far on radio.
No. But when you were talking about corruption, I didn't realize it got to that level. I thought we were
There are
talking
pages and pages of that right in the first part of the indictment, so you can read that too. And then we move on to some of the other things that he was doing that we knew more about.
He had this doc. Let's start the basic facts, right? This friend/contributor doctor in Florida.
Right.
Forget his name.
Solomon Milligan.
Solomon Milligan.
And Dr. Milligan has a apparently palatial house in the Dominican Republic. Yes.
Yeah. But maybe more than that.
Well, they were definitely good friends. And the thing is, when you're a U.S. Senator, there are more restrictions on how you can act in regard to other people and even your friends. And he took many, many flights on Dr. Milligan's private planes. He also let Dr. Milligan pay for a first-class ticket on another airline. He's stayed with the doctor at his resort house. He let the doctor pay for golf. And he also accepted a lot of money in campaign contributions from the doctor.
In return for which he did what?
In return for which he did a lot.
According to the indictment.
According to the indictment. And there's not just according to the indictment, but there's a lot of email evidence that they cite in this indictment to back up what they're saying. So it's not just the mere allegations. There's many, many emails from Menendez's staffers, for example. So most of the allegations concern two different scenarios. One about this port security deal that the doctor had wanted in the Dominican Republic, and we've read more about that in the past. But basically, the doctor was involved. Always interesting that an ophthalmologist in Florida should be involved in port security in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
And when there seemed to be problems with the deal and how it was going to work, Senator Menendez intervened with the State Department and the Customs Office and Border Patrol in order to make sure that Dr. Milligan's deal was going through and that he was going to be able to work this port security deal. And then I'd say that even worse than that are all regarding his efforts to assist Dr. Milligan with a problem he was having with the Department of Health and Human Services regarding Medicare reimbursements. Or Medicaid reimbursements. Apparently, it all involved some particular drug that Dr. Milligan used in his practice and that he seemed to be overbilling in Medicaid. So he was getting basically a $9 million fine from the Center for Medicaid Services, which is part of HHS. And he was very upset about this. And Senator Menendez has staffers writing nearly every day for a while trying to intervene and get this fine, make sure this fine didn't happen. He even goes all the way to the Secretary of Health and Human Services over it.
And then, so we have the port security, we've got the Medicaid, and then we got the booty calls.
Right. That's it. That's pretty much it.
And this amounted to what?
Well, and then so he does all that, and in exchange, he's got all the plane flights, all the gifts, all the lavish travel, a very expensive trip to Paris at a 5-star hotel. And in addition then, and this is where I think is the most interesting and aggressive part of the indictment, it's also about campaign contributions and contributions to Senator Menendez's legal defense fund. And the question is, will the Justice Department be able to show that these campaign contributions were linked to Senator Menendez's actions? Was there a quid pro quo? That's going to be the question. Was Dr. Milligan merely giving all this money and donating all this money from Senator Menendez out of the goodness of his heart and because they're friends, or in a direct exchange for all of Senator Menendez's help? There is one section of the indictment that shows that there was a fund, as paragraph 223 for listeners who are actually reading it, that's where a fundraiser links, somebody who's raising money for Menendez actually links the actions with Medicare, with the Medicaid issue to a contribution. And that's where he'll get into trouble. But this indictment has got to be actually scaring politicians all over the country today, because now campaign contributions can be bribes. The law has always said that campaign contributions can be bribes, but it has been decades since the Department of Justice has actually indicted someone for accepting a campaign contribution as a bribe. bribe.
I want to know more about these girlfriends. So these were girlfriends of this doctor that Menendez was actually helping get into this country?
Yep, one Ukrainian model/actress. And she, in her visa application, they even said she was coming in for some kind of surgery, but really she was just Melgen's girlfriend. And the others were these Dominican girls. One was 18 and one was 22. Girl and her sister, and he was, and they had their visa applications denied. And Senator Menendez went to bat with the State Department and said, "Hey, we really need you to do this." And one of Senator Menendez's staffers said he was confident they only got into the country, in fact, because of Senator Menendez's intervention. So that's what senators do. This is the way they spend their time. This is the kind of act. It's good to have senators as friends.
Yeah. Right. Now, absent the booty calls, right, and with the port security of the Medicaid, isn't this, in a sense, what senators or members of Congress do? These people give them a lot of money, and then they say, you know what, I got this problem with HHS, or I got this problem with IRS or something. Do you think you could help out? I mean, they do it all the time, and wouldn't it be hard to prove that it's actually quid pro quo?
I think it is difficult to prove there's a quid pro quo, and that will certainly be one of the major issues at the trial.
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying, he's not the only one up there who's doing favors for rich friends,
right,
or rich contributors.
Right.
You know that.
You know that. Well, two things. First, it's Dr. Melgen isn't even a constituent, so he's not a New Jersey resident. So there's always a little more of an issue when you're doing things for people who are not your constituents.
I just want to interrupt you there because Politico's headline this morning again is about Menendez, Florida's third senator. So they say, oh yes, he is his constituent because Menendez, particularly because I think his position on Cuba,
right, of course,
he represents Florida maybe more than New Jersey, but
right.
That's just
although it doesn't seem like Dr. Melgen had a lot of concerns about Cuba in all of the things I read here.
No, you're right, but he's a senator from New Jersey.
No. But in addition to that, it does seem like Dr. Melgen was particularly generous, and he was particularly generous at the exact same time he seemed to need things. So that'll be what's different here is the timing. It seems like there are contributions at the same exact time Senator Menendez is going to bat for Dr. Melgen, and that's obviously something the Justice Department will say. But on the other hand, Bill, you're completely right. We have seen in recent years the number of times legislators will hold hearings in the morning and have a fundraiser the same evening involving the same issue that was in the hearing in the morning. And there have been questions in the past whether there were ethics issues regarding that kind of thing. It seems to me that one of the problems we have in our system is that often it is a matter of legalized bribery, campaign contributions in exchange for legislative action. But what we have here that's a little bit different is it's not just legislative action. It's action that will directly affect Senator Melgen's pocketbook. When Senator Menendez goes to bat for him, we're talking about a port security deal that will help make Dr. Melgen richer, considerably richer. And the same thing with the Medicare. It's a $9 million issue. So Dr. Melgen is giving money at the same time he's getting Senator Menendez to try and help him to the tune of $9 million.
Lobbyist friends of mine have told me one particular story about I'm not going to name his name, but a member of Congress from California who lives on Capitol Hill. And they said, you cannot go into his office. You go into his office, and for any meeting on any issue, he will not ask you for money at the time. But by the time you get back to your office, there's a call from his fundraiser asking for a contribution.
Yeah.
And
that's terrible. And that, in fact, is, that is, solicitation of a bribe in my book. That, that's what he's doing, soliciting bribes.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah, and so this may just be the first of many coming up here. Melanie Sloan with us. You've heard U.S. Senator, just one of 100, indicted for corruption for taking bribes. This is very serious stuff. Menendez says he's going to fight it. What do you think? 866-55-PRESS. We'll be back with Melanie Sloan.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000. I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 12 minutes now before the top of the hour, talking about the big indictment. New York Times headline, U.S. charges Menendez sold political favors. Melanie Sloan, formerly head of, now with the Triumph Strategies, that's her new firm, but formerly head of Crew, the first ones to asked the Justice Department to look into these potential problems with Senator Menendez. So, that was how long ago?
2012.
Really?
In the spring of, Crew first started getting emails from this mysterious Pete Williams in the spring of 2012. And he made all sorts of allegations regarding Menendez and Dr. Melgen. Well, he's unknown. And that's what, when Senator Menendez talks about how this is dirty tricks and his political enemies, I mean, there clearly was someone out to get him. And there was a smear campaign that was absolutely, Senator Menendez has that part right. This Pete Williams guy had reached out to Crew and was first just said that Dr. Melgen and Senator Menendez were involved with prostitutes down in the Dominican Republic. But the fact of the matter is, prostitution isn't illegal in the Dominican Republic. Senator Menendez wasn't married at the time. You know, that to us, that was not something that was a very, we weren't going to do anything based on that. And then this Pete Williams upped the ante and said, well, it was actually underage prostitutes, which would be a crime. It's a federal crime to travel. It's sex tourism crime. And that wouldn't have been enough for us to do anything about it. But he had so many details about Dr. Melgen and Senator Menendez's relationship and places they went, like clubs they were at together, time they'd spent on this yacht. There was just a lot of information. And we kept going back and forth with this guy, trying to get him to talk to us and trying to find more information. Eventually, we realized that we had enough that seemed like it was very worrisome, but we couldn't go to the Dominican Republic and figure out, and this guy wasn't talking to us. So we sent a letter to the Justice Department asking for an investigation. But unlike with most corrections where we make them public right away, because we felt like there were some, this was just to allege somebody's involved with underage prostitutes can be career ruining. You don't want to say such a thing if it's not true. So we didn't make this letter public. We sent it to the Justice Department, but at the same time we sent it to the Justice Department, we also shared it with ABC News. And the reason we did that was we'd had a very bad experience with the Justice Department in 2006 over the investigation of Mark Foley, where we had asked, some people might remember, Mark Foley was the member of Congress from Florida who had been preying on teenage pages. But we had asked the Justice Department to look into that, the FBI to look into that, and they had not. And later they had said we hadn't given them enough information for them to really do their job. There was a whole Inspector General investigation. Anyway, we didn't have enough confidence that the Justice Department would really investigate. We knew ABC News had a lot more resources than we did. They could go down to the Dominican Republic and look into the matter, but we also knew they weren't going to air something like this if they didn't have their facts. Their lawyers at ABC wouldn't have let them. Anyway, so that started the whole thing, and the Justice Department did start looking into the matter in 2012. But you have to remember, this is right shortly before Menendez's election. There was also some question about whether the Senate could turn at that point. So we were we had some reason to be skeptical. Anyway, we never made it public, but shortly before the election, somebody went to this Pete Williams or somebody else went to the Daily Caller with the same allegations.
Right.
And the Daily Caller did run them all, but they ran them at the same time as Hurricane Sandy had hit. So it was sort of New Jersey was otherwise occupied.
The Daily Caller had to back down because they
kind of refused to back down. Tucker Carlson stood firm, but eventually it was found to be completely ridiculous, and it was undermined. And so Senator Menendez is right when he says there were people who were out to get him on that.
All right. What are the rules of the Senate? He has been indicted. Does he remain a senator?
He does remain a senator. I understand that he has stepped down from his role as the chairman or the ranking on foreign relations now. But it's really up to the Senate. What the Democrats from the Senate, will they want to push him out? This is obviously not the kind of issue they really want to have going into 2016. Somebody in their party indicted for corruption, the first person in decades to be indicted for flat out bribery. If you remember, the last indictment was Ted Stevens, and that was for false statements on his financial disclosure forms, not for bribery. So this is a pretty serious step. So the Democrats are obviously going to be having a lot of issues about that. But at the same time, if he steps down, Chris Christie gets to appoint the next senator from New Jersey, and I'm sure the Democrats don't want that either.
And Dr. Melgen, does he just skate?
He's not skating. He's indicted too.
Oh, he is indicted.
They're indicted together. Right. So no, he's definitely not skating.
Yeah. If it's a quid pro quo, you think both the quid and the quo ought to get.
They are. Yeah.
All right. Good. And this is not the first time Senator Menendez has gotten any legal trouble.
No, he's been under investigation before. There was a long-time investigation when Chris Christie was the U.S. Attorney of New Jersey into whether Senator Menendez was receiving renting out something to a property he owned to a nonprofit group and charging an exorbitant rent. That investigation ultimately was shut down.
All right. Well, this is just the beginning of this latest saga here, and we will follow it every step of the way with the person who got us started in the first place, Melanie Sloan. Thanks, Melanie. Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
TriumphStrategy.com is a new firm. Check it out. All right. We'll see you again.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, a person. The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says The business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Yes, it may be the most graphic example of climate change anywhere on the planet. Normally, on April 1st, the snowpack in California's Sierra Nevada mountains measures 60 inches. This year, this snowpack is 0. And since melting snow makes up 30% of California's water supply, that's brought a big drought in California to a crisis state, prompting Governor Jerry Brown yesterday to impose the first mandatory statewide restrictions on water use in the state's history. Standing on dry ground, usually buried in snow this time of year, Governor Brown announced a series of measures designed to reduce water usage by 25%. But one thing for sure, the way things are going, California won't be the only state to have to adopt emergency water conservation measures. As Governor Brown said yesterday, the idea of your nice little green lawn getting watered every day, those days are past, and they're not coming back. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Thursday. Come back and see us again tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.